We recently talked about Blizzard layoffs and all the things going down at Blizzard right now and how it's already affecting the game. Well, now there's some people that are quitting. What is this? A beloved WoW dev has quit. His reasons are concerning. Oh, let's see what this one's all about here from Bellular.
Welcome back to the Warcraft News. I gotta be real with you, today's episode is honestly kind of nostalgic. So here's the situation we're in. Patch 11.2 is just 1 week away. The current PTR build is actually marked as the release candidate. That means it's the build that we're going to get. But of course, there's a question. Is it actually ready? Well, let's take a look at what some people are saying.
I'd hope
there
so.
are complaints about completely abandoned classes. People are starting to think that hero talents were a massive mistake because of all the complexity that the game's classes have now got from a balancing perspective. We'll talk about all that, but for the nostalgia, here's the kicker. The return of a universally reviled decision from Battle for Azeroth, and that is a rotating vendor. So, welcome back to the news, but don't worry, it is not all doom and gloom. There are actually...
By the way, that was my concern initially for Hero Towns from the very beginning. I'm like, why is Blizzard doing this to themselves? This is going to be something they're going to have to balance and iterate on constantly, because these things are supposed to be evergreen features. To me, I didn't understand the Hero Talent move. I thought they could have just went with some kind of aesthetic changes to things like making people be able to play as a Dark Ranger. Just, I don't know, but use the, what's it called? Not inscription or whatever. What the hell were those things called that could change the way your spells look? We don't even use them anymore, but they used to be really cool. They could have just kind of iterated on that system and given people different class fantasies via that. The whole addition of the Hero Talent system, yeah, glyphs, that's what they were called. The whole Hero Talent system to me was just added complexity for no reason. But it's been fine. It's been fine. I guess people aren't complaining about it. And the whole thing about a class being left behind, that shit happens every patch. That's just a typical complaint.
Really nice game changes to talk about as well.
I know we still use glyphs, but I feel like it could have been a system that could have been taken to the next level. And that could have been what hero talents were kind of meant to be, which is more class fantasy.
But hang on a sec, I've got something really cool. So, do you know what's nice? Never not having the cable that I need while also having a bag that isn't full of cables.
Oh, run that ad.
Today, Ugreen, who are our sponsor, are at it again, and they're letting me achieve that. So get a load of these, right? This is their latest models, which now have got built-in retractable cables. These are absolutely amazing. But it is still handy to have a cable in case you need one, say for charging multiple devices, and that's where this comes in. This is, very simple, a little retractable cable. And man, it's absolutely brilliant. It's got a tiny footprint, and it never gets tangled, it never gets snagged, and it stores away neatly. It's so nice. And then, of course, we got the 20,000 milliamp hour battery. This thing is awesome. It'll charge up at 100 watts.
Cool.
It can output 100 watts as well through its retractable cable, plus 65 watts from the USB-C at the same time for 165 watts of once, which is enough capacity to recharge your MacBook Air 13.
That's actually impressive.
Times, or say an iPhone 16, 3.6 times, which is a lot. It's very handy when you're traveling, and it'll charge from every port at once. And then finishing off my kit, this is just lovely. 65 watt charger, retractable cable built in.
That is a massive brick.
I really didn't appreciate how nice it is not having a rat's nest of cables everywhere. And of course, being Ugreen, these have overvolt, overcharge, overtemperature, and short circuit protection, and basically, I'm always staggered.
I'm just watching it live.
Performance. It's actually at the stage now where my parents, my partner, and my colleagues are defaulting to Ugreen for very good reason, and you'll find the best prices for these with the links below. Let's start with the big story then. It's the patch 8.3 PTSD, which is a little bit extreme, but basically here's what's going on. One of the improvements coming to Delves in Season 3 is Zahran, and if you progress your journey a little bit, he will show up, and when he does, he'll sell champion-level trinkets at the end of Tier 9 Delves.
Okay.
Now, that does actually sound like a big upgrade, right?
Yeah.
It's really cool. But here's the thing. During testing, Lazy noticed something rather strange. These trinkets seem to change with updates. But then, a few days later, they spotted a pattern that Zahran actually changes what he sells on a daily basis. And it's got a 5-day rotation.
Shit.
Sound familiar? Well, it's just like the rotating corruption vendor from Battle for Azeroth. That was the one that kind of drove everyone completely insane, which at least was somewhat on theme with what that patch was meant to be. Now look, this may not
That's tough. I don't know how the rotation will work, but if it's only certain days that he sells certain items and you need one of those certain items, that would, because you might not be able to log in on a Tuesday. But the only time he sells the item you need is on a Tuesday, that would kind of stink, man.
Seem like a big deal. I mean, you can just check back later, right?
Why would they do that?
Go do it again the next day. But as an example, imagine this. You're a player who does not know that this NPC rotates. You go and you finish a tier 9 delve. He shows you a few trinkets. You dump your undercoins on them. Then you dump some valor stones on some upgrades. Nice, you're happy. But then the next day, you see him again. You talk to him. And you see that he's got better trinkets.
Damn.
And now suddenly you feel stupid. You feel like you wasted a bunch
like
of
you've been
currency
duped.
yesterday, right? I mean, hey.
I mean, yeah, they should definitely make this like a text in the game. Like when you open up his vendor page that says like these, the items that I'm selling today will change tomorrow. So, be aware or whatever. Or show a preview of the items that'll be available tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like you could even gray the items out and have them in his vendor page. And if you mouse over it, it'll just say like this item will be available for purchase on Wednesday. Just so that people know that shit's going to happen so you don't have the situation he just described.
Skill issue. You should have read WoWhead, because sometimes it really does
Right,
seem
how
like,
would you know?
Well, the game just expects you to read WoWhead and to know these things.
That's messed
so
up.
One of the points people are making here is that it's quite frustrating. It's bad for usability, but also it can lead to people wasting their resources, being confused, generally speaking, just feeling bad about how they've earned things in the game. And there really are a ton of downsides here and effectively no upsides. I mean, maybe the surprise, the enjoyment, the sheer thrill of new trinkets. Maybe that's exciting for someone. I don't really think it is. And even so, it does directly go against WoW's current design philosophy. WoW is now a game that's more about giving you choice and freedom. This system doesn't. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that this will ruin the patch. It absolutely will not. But it is the repeat of a mistake that they made over 5 years ago in patch 8.3. That's a little worrying. You would have imagined that someone in the WoW team would have spotted this and perhaps would have said, hang on a second, we tried this before and the players didn't like it.
Well, maybe somebody would have spotted it, but maybe Microsoft already laid those people off, The thing about laying people off is a lot of times you lose a lot of that, knowledge base that maybe had been built up over the years, right? Yeah, you're going to hire maybe people to replace them, maybe you're not, but whoever comes in or if anybody comes in, they're just not going to have the lessons that were learned back in BFA because they don't exist anymore. That knowledge has been drained from the company.
But no, that doesn't seem to have happened. And here's what you need to understand. Whenever someone, a person, a single human, repeats a mistake, that's quite simply called not learning. But when a team repeats a mistake, that is called losing institutional knowledge. And that's worrying here, because Blizzard have learned so many lessons, especially the ones from BFA through to Shadowlands. Those came at a price. They should really make sure that everyone on the team understands that they know those lessons well. And as for this instance and this NPC, maybe Blizzard will let him sell every trinket at once a few weeks into the season for some reason. Now,
maybe. Like I said, the rotating thing, all right, whatever. If they want to do that, just put grayed out items that say when they'll be available. Then you don't have people fucking up their purchases.
The reason I've been talking about institutional knowledge. What if I told you I've actually been setting something up? What I've been setting up is the next segment of this video because we've got to say goodbye to a fairly, screw it, I'll say it, a fairly legendary dev. Sad news, everyone. Scarizard is leaving Blizzard. Now, if you don't know that name, honestly, you probably should. He joined World of Warcraft about 4 years ago, and the mark that he left in the game, honestly, is rather huge. I mean, to start with, he is responsible for loads of memorable items since Shadowlands. Think of things like the Grief Torch, right? Remember that? Say the voice of the Silent Star, the quantum items from Dawn of the Infinite. Essentially, as a senior systems designer on the awards team, he was involved in all sorts of things, including the item upgrade system. And this is all the way from Inception.
I think the item upgrade system has been a good thing for the game. At least it gives you, it makes me feel like I'm always progressing towards something. When we're on that like 17th run of the raid and maybe we die at the same boss again this week that we did last week, we make no progress in the raid. At least I know that now I have some more, Valor Stones and, which I wish didn't exist, and crests that I can use now to upgrade my gear, and I'll come back a little bit stronger the next week. And that was kind of that was something that I really liked when they introduced the system back in Dragonflight.
To all of the consistent fixes that we've been getting to it every season. And most recently, he called the Raid Renown track his baby. And it seems that that's been a pretty good success for the team. They're keeping it into the next patch, and the next version of the Raid Renown is honestly way better. It actually shows they've learned and they've made improvements. So, he's seemingly been a fairly influential dev who's done a really good job. And not just in-game. I mean, in the top comment on an interview with Max, he was called an S-tier yapper. If you can't speak Zoomer internet, that's a compliment. And if you listen to the interview, yeah, you'll agree. He does an amazing job. He was outwardly passionate in a way that people just loved and connected with.
I remember
Max and
this.
Dratnos could barely get a word in. The dude was just so hyped talking about WoW. So it's obviously sad that he's leaving. Not because he was fired or anything. He actually did talk about why. He wanted to, quote, imagine a future not tied to a patch schedule. I guess being a WoW YouTuber, I kind of know the feeling, but nowhere near the degree to, well, him, because it seems like it's a shitload of work. Now, obviously, he is just one member of a...
It's been a very emotional day, but I want to get... Wait, what was his previous tweet? What was he saying in it? I don't have anything lined up. There's no announcement of an announcement. This was all for Burnout. MH reasons, and needed to give myself space to actually imagine a future not tied to a patch schedule. So he getting burned out with the patch cadence and everything else. We've been talking about how fast these patches have been rolling out and how great it is for us. But yeah, I'm sure the devs, not to mention they're being asked to do more because just like every other corporation in America, they're firing people and they're not rehiring. So they're just dealing with more stuff. They're being expected to pump out more content with less people. Yeah, so I mean, of course that formula does lead to burnout.
He is the first to call out other people on his team for doing a brilliant job. Basically, it's a team full of people who are just as passionate but do not happen to be in the public eye as he has been. But still, they're waving goodbye to 4 years of lessons learned from a dev who was very much in the frontline trenches. And that's another danger of this aggressive patch cycle. Developer burnout. Because even with some separation, like say having a hypothetical, a team A and a team B taking turns in patches or something, well, teams like Scarizard's are said to work on a little bit of everything. I believe he was on the live team. So that's basically the team that ends up having to firefight every problem and make sure that all the seasons are actually good.
Oh my God, imagine how much these live devs that got to deal with the live game dread patch day. Because lately, patch day has been a complete shit show. Could you imagine how frustrating work is the day a patch drops? Oh my God. Oh my God, you're just running around trying to fix everything? I do not envy them.
And hey, if you look at Season 2 of this expansion, holy shit have they made improvements. Now that kind of marathon running is not for everyone, especially not if it's a years-long marathon and one that is without an end in sight. Now, this is a WoW problem, but it's also a live service game problem. People will naturally burn out, and it's inherent in the format of game that it's kind of hard to develop. It's hard to keep a team just on mission and passionate when it is, in some ways, an endless death march. So honestly, props to Ian for sticking it out so long. But I'd also say there's another problem, and it's that of selection criteria. Yeah, we're going to go all Charles Darwin in this shit. But basically, often people who like to innovate and shake shit up, they kind of are sprinters, They sprint, they stop, they sprint. They're not as consistent. Marathon runners are perhaps more the kind to make small, consistent improvements and work at a solid pace. Now, both types of person are necessary in a high-performance...
Yeah, I was going to say, both are needed, though. You got in every workplace, who these people are. You guys got the big thinkers and the big idea makers who a lot of times just disappear, and you just feel like they're delaying everything and not being able to get shit done. But then there's times where they're highly efficient. And then you got the marathon runners, as he described, who are always getting work done at a consistent rate, but maybe they never come up with the big ideas. They're just kind of the grunt workers, always getting shit done. And both, are necessary for sure. Now, I mean, Mson kind of falls into the same category. He was a sprinter, right? Coming up with these major storylines, always grinding out the next thing, pumping out content, and he burned out. If you remember, and really the thing that burned him out when we found out later on was was Overwatch, what it was supposed to be. What is it called? Titan, whatever was the code name for that MMO. He was working on that shit for a long time, and really it burned him out like crazy. So that was part of the reason he left, and now he's back. Now he talks about the fact that he's no longer kind of single riding this. He works with a team now, so he won't burn out the same way he did last time. We'll see how that all works out. But yeah, definitely both of these types of people exist in every single company.
Team. But it can be pretty tough to make sure that there's a place for both of those types of people within your teams. And when I look at World of Warcraft, I do get worried sometimes that's a bit of a death march, especially when we've seen patches launch in a way that hasn't been great. Because imagine you're in Scarizard's position, right? You're working on real, just close to the player base content. your hand is pretty much in every patch. But you see, you know, Codex of Chromie is borked. The patch after that launches with a whole bunch of issues, a whole bunch of things being broken. You get
it's
features
frustrating
like
for sure.
the Arathi stuff in Hallowfall and patch
That's bad.
11.17 or 11.15 that was broadly seen to not be that good and also didn't work when it launched. You've got things like Dastly Duos that really, I mean, some of us did it in PTR, didn't touch it in live, and I know it's...
Yeah, I'll be honest. I feel like they probably put more work into Dastly Duos than it was worth. I just didn't do it. I think we did it the first week for some fun, and then I never went back and did it again. And I don't know, maybe they could have had better rewards. Maybe it was the rewards that were lacking and just didn't create any motivation to actually go get it done. But it seems like something that they put some love and work into, and probably a lot of people just played it that first day and never played it again.
The same for loads of people who just weren't really bothered with it. Now, I'm not saying that Dastly Duos wasn't good because they're shit devs with bad ideas. I actually think there was loads of potential in that. It's just it needed more time in the oven. So I worry that developers like Scarizard are going to get burnt out by this content cadence. And certainly when I look at player feedback, it does seem that people are almost finding it hard to keep on top of just the crazy amount of stuff that WoW has. And to loop this back into the last topic, well, a world where a rotating vendor happens again, after we already know the players don't like it, that seems like a world where institutional knowledge has been lost. And to see a fairly important public-facing developer who's done real good work leave, and not leave because they've got some crazy new opportunity, but simply because they're burnt out and they want to live their own life free from a patch cycle, well, that is concerning to me.
Right.
After a segment like that, it feels a bit weird to go back to game stuff, but...
Yeah, was it, or did he jump just before the Cosby Suite shit, shift this, or come back after it settled down? I don't... Maybe that added some additional stress to him. I don't think Mson was involved at all in the Cosby Suite. I'm pretty sure they know the names of the people who were part of that, and he wasn't one of them. But yeah, maybe it was all just too much drama, and he wanted to get the hell out of there for a little while. It could be.
Hey, the show must go on.
Could be a
It's the nature of the
contributing
beast.
factor, but
So,
not the factor.
Have you ever forgotten how many sparks that you've made and how many sparks you've used? Well, it's
No,
taken
'cause I don't
Blizzard a
make
few
'em.
years, but they have finally made a spark counter. So Season 3 has got a new
I reported
currency
on
called
this.
Starlight Spark Dust.
I reported on this because I thought it was the funniest thing ever. They basically created a currency to track your currency because there's too many currencies. Yeah, so that's how they solved the problem. Hey, we got too many currencies. People can't track their shit here. How do we solve this? Let's make a currency to track the currency. That's how we're going to fix the currencies.
Get
That's
one
what they did,
every
literally.
time you find a fractured spark this season, which basically means it's perfect for keeping track of how many sparks you've gotten. And because Blizzard are doing this via currencies, well, currencies do support showing weekly caps as well, so hopefully this will also show weekly caps. That does mean you won't need to get, say, an extra add-on, script, or anything like that,
That's
or just
good.
manually count out the weeks on your abacus. Now the game will actually tell you how these things work. Okay, let's talk about some other improvements then. So, if you've not been paying attention to WoW Classic, honestly you should, because it's great, and you may have missed something. Blizzard are fixing the lack of hard 5-man content. This is awesome. They're called Celestial Dungeons, and instead of including Raid Finder and Mop, they're moving LFR loot into something new. So, Celestial Dungeons are basically queued raid difficulty dungeons, right? So the difficulty of a raid, but it's a dungeon, and you're kind of getting LFR-like loot. Essentially, the team are...
You know why I'm finding this to be very interesting? You know what this sounds like? This sounds like testing for some kind of new Classic Plus feature. That's what it sounds like, because you got to remember, Classic doesn't have Mythic Plus, right? So how would you create some kind of iterative system where dungeons remain viable and remain a reason to get to run through and get loot? Well, you create like this. This looks like a soft, Mythic Plus for Classic Plus, where they can make dungeons a bit more difficulty in terms of raid difficulty, and then they give you LFR-esque loot. Also, you won't have LFR in Classic Plus, so this is a way to get that loot into the game, or that item level into the game. I think that's what this is.
Building on what they did with Titan Rune Dungeons and Elemental Rune Dungeons, which were from the previous Classic iterations. But here, these are, I think, much more interesting as a replacement for LFR. The way it works is they'll release 2 weeks after each raid. They'll add...
It's been in Classic for 8 months now. I had it for Dragon Soul. Oh, they had like a Classic Plus version of this, where dungeons were giving better loot. I wasn't
raid
aware.
Enemies and mechanics to the existing dungeon pool as well, and when you complete dungeons, you'll get
Was that in
August
Season of
Stone
Discovery?
Fragments, which you can trade in for LFR gear. And when the legendary cloak quest comes later, well, you'll be able to use these to progress that instead of raiding. which honestly is pretty sick. But that's not all, because there's one thing more relevant happening in Mists of Pandaria right now, and it's exactly what some of us expected. Now that it's live, many players are finally experiencing what's...
Okay, they're already doing it in China. Yeah, I know. I heard about the China Classic stuff. Wrath Classic was the one who had this? Okay, they had a Mythic Light and Wrath. Okay, got it. So they're just probably more testing and more iterating on those systems to see what they want to do when Classic Plus actually drops, because it looks like they are working on Classic Plus.
So many of us would call peak World of Warcraft combat design. Mists was legendary for it. I remember it fondly. It's when I started this channel. And for a lot of those players, well, they're kind of realizing that modern WoW does feel a little bit rough by comparison, at least sometimes. Essentially, MoP is when they did this to talents. And look, it was real controversial at the time. Believe me, I was there. Everything connected to your spec came to you as you leveled. So it was very prescriptive. It didn't have that many RPG elements. Your class basically played almost the exact same, unless you maybe had a crazy trinket or you finished a tier set. Now what that did is it let Blizzard keep things simple. You could put all your damage on your abilities. There was no need for tons of tiny effects from talents that would add up over time. And essentially, the lack of variables let class designers do absolutely excellent work. So people have started taking a look at modern talent trees, and of course also at hero talents, and they're starting to blame these things for how modern WoW can sometimes feel to play. And here's what they mean when they bring this up as a problem. Instead of hitting Bladestorm for huge area of effect damage, what do? Well, you are Bladestorming, but you're doing that to apply the overwhelmed effect. Your executes, by comparison to MoP, absolutely tickle, and that's because their real damage comes from stacking loads and loads of marks to buff your execute. It's all, of course, with the same amount of damage, it's the same buttons, but it's coming via a stack of buffs at various different times throughout your rotation. And if you want to see how bad it is for yourself, at least some people would say it's bad, check out a few DPS and healing specs.
I mean, the talent trees were, they did make those changes in MoP, but I actually think like class design in MoP was good. I remember enjoying class design in MoP a lot, where, a lot of classes could do PvP too was really good at MoP, actually. That was the last time probably I did a little bit of that. But I just remember MoP being overall a good expansion with good class design. And even though they redid the talent trees, that was controversial, I just remember having a good time in MoP playing different classes.
With Harrick's advanced tooltips installed, right? Because, this will blow your mind. Turn that add-on on, move your mouse over an ability, and boom! A third of your screen will just be loads and loads of information. It's a hell of a lot. You'd almost need a math degree to understand how your spec works under the hood. Now, of course, some people are looking at the state of things then on PTR for patch 11.2, where they are finding broken specs, basically bugs that are kind of breaking how a few specs play. There are some broken tier sets.
There were broken tier sets. We saw this morning on the patch notes from Blizzard that they fixed a lot of issues with tier sets. So that was a big thing that they just addressed. So yeah, these posts are right. Hopefully Blizzard fixed the problems with this morning's patch notes, though.
Is all over the place. But here's something that's changed. People are not saying lazy devs, shit devs. I mean, how could you look at, say, Scarizard's tweet? A man literally living his life by the goddamn patch release schedule. You can't look at that and think, oh, what a lazy bastard. He just couldn't cut it. No way. Instead, people are realizing that there's just so much complexity. You've got dozens and dozens of moving parts. I mean, how do you balance the damage of Bladestorm when it turns out Bladestorm is really being used to apply stacks of a thing that makes something else do loads of damage? Surely, if you're a designer for combat or you're just trying to balance something, that must be a nightmare.
Because this was why, I just didn't understand the hero talents play. I really didn't. I just felt like it was gonna create problems down the line, because this is something they have to balance now. It's a spec that affects two specs, right? It's a spec within a spec, but each hero talent tree can be used with two different specs. So it's like this triple balancing, hyper complicated new way to spec out, and I don't know why they put that on themselves. Whether or not they thought it was a cool idea for the players, they had to have realized that this was going to create extra complexity in the future that they would have to deal with, and they're already dealing with a lot. That's why I never understood the play. It's not that I didn't think it was going to be fun for this expansion, and some people think it is, some people think it isn't. It's just that I saw this is going to create problems down there. Why are they doing this to themselves? They already have trouble balancing all this shit out. Why are they adding more problems to balance out later on? But they did, and now it's in the game, and now it's an evergreen feature they're going to have to deal with.
Because you make one change and suddenly you've got cascading effects everywhere. So perhaps designers have also got to be masters of advanced statistics. Now, in fairness to the modern game, the fantasies are mostly cool, and the utility choice that we get is great. And even the gameplay choices, where they actually exist, do feel pretty awesome. But for a lot of people, seeing the comparison to how fun Mists was, in a way, partially because it was quite a bit more simple, well, that does put all of this in a new light. And it's funny because it actually brings me back to a Preach video. This is way back in Warlords of Draenor.
Interesting. It was simple. I actually think the Dragonfly talent trees are some of the best talent trees I've ever had in the game. I think they're really good. I liked what they did with talent trees. Again, I just don't see why hero talents got added on top of that. That was it.
And I believe he was in the Blackrock Foundry. At the time, I was playing Beast Mastery Hunter, trying to kill that annoying Bomberman boss dude. And Mike was talking about how, from pull to pull, he would find there was just so much randomness in the amount of damage that his character did. And that was because of all the different procs and all the different effects. And of course, it's very much went further in that direction over time. And it just makes me think, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be advocating for a return literally to the Mists of Pandaria talent system. I actually do think the fantasy and the flavor of the current talent system is really good, but I do think some form of really fast, great simplification in those effects, just to put more damage on the abilities themselves rather than on compounding effects, I think that would probably be more fun. And just speaking as a player, I mean, when you hit execution, you really would like it to just do a shitload of damage and to not have a whole bunch of other stuff attached to it, because it's execution. It kind of has a point, right? Do you know what? I think there is a little bit of hope in this. You'll probably have noticed a lack of class changes as this expansion has went on. They started really strong. They obviously had a lot of firefighting to do, but after they stabilized things, the class changes really, really did slow down. That almost has me thinking, was this done for a reason? I mean, if the Midnight expansion is going to change a whole bunch of this stuff, then why the hell would you break your back doing loads of class overhauls and revamps and shit for patch 11.2 when it's all going to be thrown in the bin basically in like 6 months? That does make me think maybe there is something planned for the Midnight expansion. I very much hope that is the case anyway, because I do think we need a big reduction of class gameplay. Now, you may hear that and think, wait, do you mean less class gameplay? No, I do not. I mean reduction, like when you're cooking and you're making a sauce and you let it reduce, right? You let all the pointless water boil away.
He wants it to get thick.
I think they need to do that for WoW's classes. I think if Ian said that, it would essentially be met with cheers. But you know what? This is only one of the ways that the war of
not sure about
a
that
little bit
analogy.
funky as an expansion. If you've been wondering why, it basically feels like
hero talents. Yes. Will you be watching Gamescom? Yeah, hell yeah. I'll be doing an all-day stream that day.
the war within, the promise of going under Azeroth, right? Big journey way down to the world core and the world soul. If you're wondering why it feels like that stopped dead, you should watch this video next, because it basically explains exactly what you've been wondering.
Damn. All right. Yeah, that's interesting video. It's, sad to see that dev go. I had heard of him before. I knew he did a lot of work, and I know for sure, like, that job of being a dev who deals with the live game patch releases, oh my god, that's probably one of the worst jobs. That, like, they should have an episode of dirty jobs. Even though you're not getting your hands dirty, that just probably makes you feel dirty. Dealing with patch releases for Blizzard, oh man, that's a tough one. We'll see how things go on going forward. We know they laid off a bunch of people. This guy just left. There's going to be some back-end shit that has to happen. They're going to have to hire people or something. I don't know. But overall, class balancing, everything else, yes, I saw these. I'm not a prophet, but I saw these problems coming. And they are problems right now, but we'll see if they can fix some of this stuff going forward and into Midnight. I hope in Midnight they remove hero talents, but keep everything else normal talents. Yeah, Sylar, I'm kind of hoping for that too. I'm kind of hoping that they do what they did maybe with Legion, legendary talents. Like maybe they take the best of the best from hero talents, integrate them directly into the talent trees, and then just stop there. Get rid of hero talents altogether. And I think that'd be the best way to go forward with it, and the best way to kind of reduce the complexity of it, because right now it is very complex, that's for sure.